Hello, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining the Norsonic user group session. So today we'll be covering the NOR145 basic training. So today in this session, it will be myself, Francine, and my colleague Ben.
Hello,
Ben
everyone.
looks after. Hello, Ben. Good morning. So Ben looks after technical support here. So if you have any technical questions, so Ben is the person for you to speak with. You can always contact him, sending an email to support@campbellassociates.co.uk. And I'm your contact here if you have any sales inquiry. So, well, I hope you are all ready to start. I hope you have a hot cup of tea or coffee in this cold morning. Hope you have your NOR145 kit there with you as well. But if you don't have, that is not a problem. You can still follow the training. We will be sending the recordings to you in the next couple of days, so you can review the session if you need. Okay. So if you have your 145 kit with you and it's not ready to start, please turn on your meter, plug into the mains, and start preparing your kit because we'll start the training very soon. Before that, I just have a few things to cover prior to the training, but if you can get your kit ready, that would be great. Okay, so what do you need for the training today? So you need your 145 sound level meter. As I said before, if you don't have your kit with you, it's not a problem. You can still follow the training. But if you have your kit, then you need your 145, which if you're not familiar with the meter, so this is the latest meter from Norsonic. It has a very nice color touchscreen. Okay, it works with a rechargeable battery that should last up to 8 hours. Um, it also a very nice robust hand switch, and we can also use a headphone set to play back the audio recordings. And if you go to the next slide, please. So today for the training, if you also have your calibrator there with you, we'll be showing you how to do a field calibration with your sound level meter. And talking about calibration, I think it is always good to remind you that your sound level meter needs to be recalibrated in our lab every 2 years, okay? So I think now is a good moment for you to take the time and just have a look at your sound level meter to see if you can find the calibration label that should be on the back of your sound level meter. So you should see a label very similar to the one that we have on the screen. And you should be able when your sound level meter is due for calibration. So the calibration is every 2 years. So, and regarding the calibrator, the field calibrator, we need to calibrate it every year. So Ben, if you change to the next slide. So if you can also have a look at your calibrator to see if it's due for calibration. Then if they are due for calibration, we've got an offer here for you. So Ben, if you change to the next slide. So we have free collection and returns on calibration until the end of January 2023. So this offer is valid until the 31st of January 2023. And you need to refer to the code free delivery 2023 to use this offer. Just a reminder that this offer is only valid for orders over £300 and for addresses in mainland UK. All right. We will paste this information in the Q&A session. So after the training, you can request collection and return of your sound level meter for calibration if it's due for calibration. Ben, if you change to the next slide, please. Okay. And to request, sorry, Ben, like before. So if you'd like to use our website to request collection, you just go to campbell-associates.co.uk. You go to calibration and then collection and return. And then we have a form there that you can request this service. And then you have a field where you can put this code, free delivery 2023, to make use of this offer. So we'll add all of this information in the Q&A session. So probably on the top right side of your screen, you should be able to see Q&A. If you click on that, you open the live chat for this event. And we can use this live chat to make questions at any time. So during the presentation, when Ben is presenting, I'll be covering the Q&A session, and then I'll be answering your questions. So please feel free to submit them during the training. I also would like to mention that this session is also covering the Norsonic 150, so I'm sorry about that. So this session will cover the Norsonic 145 and the Norsonic 150, okay? I will add the calibration offer soon in the live chat, okay? So you can copy and paste that information. But after the training, when we send the recordings, we will also send the details of this offer to you, okay? I also would like to mention about the CPD certificates. So in the following days, my colleagues in marketing will send you an email with a feedback form. So if you'd like a CPD certificate after this training, please fill in our feedback form, because my colleagues will be using the information in the feedback form to do the CPD certificates, okay? So I know that after the training, everyone is looking forward to receiving these certificates, but please be patient because we have quite a few people attending the training today, so we need some time to get this organized, and the best way is just to complete the feedback form, and then we have all of your details to send you the CPD certificates, all right? So if you're attending this session in a group, it's important that you complete the feedback form individually, so we know the names of everyone who attended the session. If you also would like to add a comment here in the Q&A session saying who is attending with you if you're attending as a group, so we can use this information later on, okay? Ben, next slide, please. Okay, just about the chat. Okay, so I think now we are ready to start and go through all of the settings in your sound level meter. So my colleague Ben will be covering this. Ben, over to you.
Thank you, Fran. Hello, everyone. Okay, so if you can please turn on your meter, whether that be a NOR145 or a NOR150. Once that is on, you should hopefully come into the application screen, as shown on the screen right here. If you don't, if your meter goes straight into a measurement screen, you can go to the application screen by pressing Setup, and down the bottom of the menu, there is Application. Once that is up and live, once you're in the app screen, please click on Environmental. And you want to select one of your standard setups, such as 150 NNR 3 minutes. In this case, you can select your default for today's training. This will allow you to change all your settings from the default setup for your meter. Once you have selected your default setup, you want to check what the measurement time is showing. For global, this should be set to 7 days. We will show you how to correct these settings in today's sessions. Where you see the default setup is currently set to 1 hour, that's obviously not correct, so we need to change that bit later on. For now, if you press the green arrow, the green tick in the bottom, that will accept and we'll move forward. Okay, so once you're in your default setup, you should load into the measurement screen. So in this case, you'll likely see 2 graphs. One will show the level over time, and the other will show your third octave bands. But if you press the view screen, the view key, sorry, this should bring you into your usual display, which is this one. If you're ever stuck on site and you're in an unusual view that you don't recognize, you can press the view key, as we just did, to change the display, as I've just done. Okay, so in this training, I may refer to the keypad. Obviously, depending on which meter you own, the NOR145 and the NOR150, your keypad may look slightly different. In my case, as you see on the right of the screen here, I have a NOR150. Both meters, in terms of the settings and operation, are pretty much interchangeable, but with the keys, they are in slightly different places. So you may need to have a quick look at your own keypad to see where some of these keys are, as they may be different to what you see on screen. But if you get stuck, please pop a message into the chat and we'll be happy to guide you as to where that particular button will be on your meter. And obviously, you also have a lovely colour screen on your NOR145 or NOR150. It is a touch screen as well, so you can use the keypad at the bottom, or if you see a button on screen, you can press that as well. For instance, if I press Note, you can see loads of different context menus in here. If I press Note again, that pops down. So it's useful to bear in mind that there are multiple ways of doing things with this meter. You can press the start stop, or you can press start on the actual screen itself. Okay, so as we discussed a little bit earlier on, you have got multiple views available to you in the meter, but for noise nuisance recording, generally you only want this one screen here, nice and big, so you can see exactly what's happening, exactly what the sound pressure level is at the time. So in order to set this single view up, you can change that in the menus. So if you press the setup key, which on my meter here is here, you should then see a menu pop up as so, and you should see right in the middle there is a menu item called views. Okay, so you see multiple different tick boxes here. Can look a bit confusing at first, but thankfully it's quite nice and straightforward. All you want to do is keep this box up the top ticked, and everything else can be crossed out, because we don't need different views for noise nuisance recordings. So once you've unticked the boxes, you literally tick on the arrow or the cross to change it. So as I said, it is a touch screen. Once that's complete and your screen looks like this, you want to tick the green tick in the bottom right hand corner, and that will save your changes in this menu. It's also worth pointing out, when you're in any of the menus on your NOR145 or your NOR150 meter, the green tick is to accept and move forwards, and the red cross is to cancel and move back. So now that we've got our measurement screen set up with the single view, it's worth pointing out what some of the icons mean that you're seeing on your screen right now. So as you see on screen, you have a battery indicator in the top left hand corner. On my own particular meter, you'll see there's this symbol here. That simply means that the meter is plugged into mains and is charging. You'll see there's also the noise level in the top right hand corner. You'll see that on my meter this is changing quite rapidly as I'm speaking, so that's perfectly normal. On this particular meter it's showing about 50, so your meter will show what this actual sound level is in the room as you're speaking, so long as we're in this screen and we haven't pressed start for a new measurement. And on here, as you can see, we've got a level over time graph, which shows you the sound pressure level over time as time is going by. If I move this up slightly, you'll see it in a bit more detail. On the right hand side, you'll notice that this is the chart showing the actual sound pressure level against time. It can confuse some people. You may find that you load up your meter and your graph is all the way down the bottom. That's not a problem at all. To change this, press your finger onto the graph. Don't hold it like I do, otherwise you get a menu. And then just drag it slightly up. And you'll see that the level along the side adjusts as you've set it. So if you're worried and you're concerned that you're not seeing this this wiggly line, you can move this up and down until you do see the line. So you'll also notice on the actual measurement screen, as I said, you have got a selection of buttons down the bottom. You've got the start button, which is right here. You can also use the start stop physical button if you prefer, but the option is yours. And as I've already shown you a bit earlier on the right hand corner, you have got a note button as well. We'll show you that in a bit more detail later on in the training. So the battery. Thankfully, your NOR145 and NOR150 meter comes with a rechargeable battery, so you don't have to worry about AA batteries running flat and having to buy some more from the shop. It's as simple as plugging in your meter as you would your mobile phone and waiting for it to charge. The battery can last up to 8 hours on a single charge if it's full, but it's always worth keeping it charged always. As with any lithium-ion battery, which is what this meter has, if you let it run flat and let it stay flat, it can cause damage. So we always advise, once you've brought the meter back from site, always plug it back in again and let it charge up to full. And if you're not using the meter for some time, it's worth topping up every once in a while just to make sure the meter hasn't run flat. So whilst you're in this view screen here, you can press the info button and it will show you up the top here what your remaining battery capacity is. So as you can see, I've been good and I've plugged my meter in last week, so I've got 96% charge. Obviously, if you're below 50%, it's probably worth plugging in if you have the option available to you. Thankfully, you will find that on site you will be plugging the meter in anyway. So for the most part, this shouldn't be a problem. But if you ever need to check the battery level and the icon on the top isn't giving you enough detail, info, and you'll see the remaining battery capacity there. So as you see on this slide, you can either press the cross to exit that menu, or you can press the info button again to close. As I say, there's multiple ways of performing different functions on the meter, so it's whatever works easiest for you. Okay, so another benefit of the clever battery management that you have with your NOR145 or NOR150 meter is that it can actually help you catch out naughty residents, as we've mentioned here. So say you have a resident, they've complained that the neighbour's dog has been barking and keeping them up all night, being very naughty. You put the meter into their property, set it all up, and the resident decides, the dog hasn't barked recently. It's not actually sounding that loud now that I'm thinking about it. They might decide to unplug the monitor and move it outside where the dog is in the garden and barking away to make the sound sound louder. They might wind the dog up potentially to make the loud noise. But thankfully with this meter, there is a clever trick that you can use to see if that has actually happened. Whenever you unplug the meter whilst it has once you're in a measurement, you'll see here that you get a green battery marker. showing against the level over time graph. And that indicates a point when the meter has been running on batteries. So in this case, if the resident has decided, I'm going to catch this dog today, unplug the meter, take it outside for even 2 minutes, you might not necessarily know, just looking at the measurement in NOR145 later. You may not even be able to pick it up in the recording. It may sound louder, but you may not think that they brought it outside. But this marker will show you that the meter has been unplugged and plugged back in to mains a bit later on. And that raises the question then, if there's a recording whilst that battery marker is active, what's this resident doing? Are they being a bit cheeky? Are they trying to wind up next door's dog and make this sound a bit louder than it should be? Whenever this happens, whenever you have a green battery marker, the meter actually logs the time and date that this has occurred. And you can actually view this in the software at a later date. It actually keeps a log. So it's quite easy once you're reviewing the measurement later on to see exactly when the meter has been unplugged and tally that up against any recordings. So it really helps you. And as you can see in the graph here, you can see the sound is getting a bit more extreme as the meter's been unplugged. This resident might be a bit naughty and has unplugged their meter and brought it outside. So as I mentioned, you can actually view the battery markers in the NOR145 software. When you download the measurement into NOR145 and you've loaded it all up, you see different markers on the graph. And where you see black bars here, that's the equivalent in NOR145 of the green marker in the actual meter screen. So that indicates to you that that meter has been operating on batteries at that particular time. And as you can see down here, you have got results in the table. You can see the duration that the meter was on battery. So as you can see here, 5 seconds. Likelihood is that the meter might have been unplugged for them to move it to a different plug socket. 10 seconds, might have unplugged it to hoover underneath, who knows. But for 44 seconds, 2 minutes, you know something might have been up there. As you can see here, you have the actual battery marker label. You have a marker interval showing the date and time. So it shows you the start of the battery operation period and the end, and the full duration here. So this battery marker feature is a feature that you need to set up in the meter. So if we go back to the setup menu, and you'll see in the middle, but slightly more to the top, just above the views menu that we went into before, is the marker menu. So you can create multiple markers. So if we go into properties, and you'll see here on my menu, the show battery marker isn't ticked. So you want to tick where the red cross is to make sure that that is ticked. So the battery markers, and if we press the green arrow to accept, that will then enable the battery marker for your meter. And as I've mentioned before, the green tick is to accept and move forward. The red cross is to cancel and move back. So this is another note worth mentioning. If you're ever in a menu, you've gone into your setup menu, you've gone into your view, you've gone into your marker, and you want to go back to the home screen, you simply repeatedly tick until you're back to the screen. Okay. The NOR145 and NOR150 stores your measurements and setups on an SD card. Norsonic recommends you only use ultra-fast SD cards to help store the recordings nice and quickly and prevent there being any issues where the internal memory buffer has been reached. You can use a 32GB card. I believe that's what the sales team provide when you buy your meter from new, but the meter can accept up to 128GB of memory, which will be plenty of memory for all of your measurements. As you can see on the left here, this is a SanDisk Extreme card, 32GB. Its speed rating is 30. That's a very fast card. We recommend a speed rating of 10 and above. But as I say, most people have had some experience with SD cards and will know the good brands out there. If you don't, SanDisk is a very good brand. If you're in doubt about what card would be suitable, please feel free to reach out to me at support. I'll be more than happy to advise you on the best card that you can purchase. If you ever want to check how much space there is available on the SD card in your meter, again, it's as simple as pressing the info button. And you'll see, as highlighted here, it shows you not only the storage mode, the folder that the data is going into, and the setup that you're in. It also shows you your free memory. So as you can see here, plenty of free memory for me. And if you want to come back out, green tick or the info button, as we showed you before. Okay, so a question that we get asked quite regularly is, how do I clear my SD card after I come back from a job? The best way to do this is to safely remove the SD card from the meter. So preferably you would turn off your meter, or at the very, very least, make sure you're not in an active measurement. So make sure you're seeing the sound pressure level change really quickly. You see a start, not a stop. That means you're not in an active measurement. But as I say, preferably you would turn your meter off before doing this. It's worth noting that the SD card is located down the bottom of your meter, and to remove it you need to push in the SD card and it will then pop out. It's important you do this. I've had some customers who haven't had much experience with SD cards decide to pull the SD card out, and that's not good because it can cause damage to your meter and we don't want that. So be sure to push it in, and then it should come out nice and easily. And then when you're putting the SD card back in, put it in place and pop it back in, and you should hear a click when it's back in place. As I say, the best way to clear the SD card once you've got it out of the meter is to plug it into your PC. And once you're in your PC, you can then reformat the card there. If you have any questions about formatting your card, always feel free to pop me a message and I'll be happy to help. Alternatively, there are plenty of easy to find guides on Google if you ask, how do I format an SD card on my PC? So in File Explorer, which is the window that pops up, you'll see a little folder, yellow folder as below here. Once you're in File Explorer, you want to find the SD card. That would usually be something like USB drive D. If you right click, you should have a little menu pop up, and you should see right in the middle there, highlighted in pink on my screen, there is the format option. As I say, if you ever forget how to do this, there are plenty of useful guides on Google, or you can always pop a message over to us and we can assist you if need be. But it's very simple, right click and format. So once you're in the format menu, you do want to turn off quick format and press start. It's recommended that you format your SD card monthly. This makes sure that the SD card has been fully wiped. There's no excess baggage on your SD card that's going to get in the way of you saving your measurements and your recordings. We also recommend that you replace the SD card frequently. Even though technology has come a long way, SD cards have been known to fail from time to time, and we don't want you to be in a situation where you've had a week or 2-week measurement on site and you lose all your measurement data and have a very unhappy resident. So as we say, SD cards aren't that expensive on Amazon these days, so we recommend probably yearly is a good idea if you can. You don't have to throw away your old SD card. You can keep it as a backup if need be, but at least then you know you've got a new card that hasn't been through the wars, and you can hopefully trust it with your measurements and hopefully prevent any unhappy residents where you have to reattend site. Okay, so it's also worth mentioning when you are ejecting your SD card from your PC, if you have got active measurement data on your SD card, you want to make sure that you safely remove the SD card. Don't just pull it out of the SD card reader, because if you don't, you do run the risk of the SD card being damaged and of corrupting your files, which of course we don't want. We don't want unhappy residents where you've got to pop back to site 2-3 times to redo measurements. So down the bottom of the screen, if you right click, you should see a little USB symbol. If you right click, you should see the option to eject, and it will tell you once you've safely ejected the device. If you have formatted your card and there's no data on there, it's not as big of a problem because there's no data for it to corrupt. But it's a good practice to get into just in case. As I say, we don't want you losing important data just for the sake of a simple step like this. Okay, so we want to make sure you're back to the measurement screen as such.
I've been just one thing to add for the
Yes.
any 150 users. So people who are using the 150 in the session. Ben touched on the SD card. So if you are using a 150, before you go out and buy a new SD card, just make sure it is a smaller size than the 145 that we mentioned. So the 145 supports up to 128, but the Norsonic 150 that supports only up to 64 gigabytes on that memory card. So I've popped it in the chat. But I know Ben has a guide that he can send over to you for if you're looking for a replacement card. He can help with that as well.
Absolutely, thank you, Anthony. Yes, anyone that's got any questions about SD cards, I know it can be confusing at times what the best card to go for is. So yeah, always feel free to reach out to us and we can help you provide guides or advice if needed. And hopefully most of you should have been provided an SD card with your meter anyway. So you've at least got one card to see you through, and if worst comes to worst, look at what the SD card is that you currently own and look for a replacement on Amazon or any other shopping portal online. They're not that expensive these days, as we say. Okay, so it is also possible to clear the SD card on the SLM. For any of you that don't know, SLM refers to a sound level meter, which is your meter that you've got in front of you. So if you see SLM and you're wondering what that meant, that just means the meter itself. So again, if we go to the setup menu, you'll see nearer the bottom of the menu, there is an option called memory. Okay, and in the middle of the screen, you should see a menu called delete all measurements. And as the name suggests, that deletes all measurements. So it's worth making sure that you don't press that that option unless you're absolutely certain there's nothing of importance on the SD card. If you press it, it will warn you you are about to delete all measurements. Continue. So if you press yes, that's at your own peril. If you click on it by mistake, obviously you have the opportunity to press no, In my case, I think I have got some measurements I want to keep, so I'm going to press no. But in your case, if you press yes, it will warn you that you're about to delete all measurements, and then you can press the green tick to continue and move forward. Okay, so in terms of checklist, we've gone into detail about the battery. So now let's have a look at the noise level. How do we set the meter to run for 7 days? So for noise nuisance recordings, as a lot of you are probably very well aware, you're looking to keep the meter on site for at least 7 days usually. Sometimes more, sometimes you want to keep it on site for maybe a fortnight, but 7 days is the average period that you want to run for. If we're back in the setup menu, so if you have gone back to your graph, if you press the setup again, you'll see near the top of the menu options, you have measurement. If we go into there, and you should see right at the top, there's an option called global and/or profile time. And that's the one we want to go into. So if we go into global, go to global time, all that global time is referring to is the period that the measurement is going to run for. So if we set this to 10 minutes and you start the meter up on a new measurement, that measurement will only run for 10 minutes, which obviously won't do for noise nuisance recording. So we want to make sure that that is set to 7 days, as we see here. You have this lovely scrolling wheel. If I show you on my meter, you can scroll it up. As you see here, that 7 days is the maximum measurement time that you can run for. So it does warn you if you try to go above that. So if I set that to 6 days, you can scroll up and down with your finger on the touch screen, but we want to make sure that's 7 days ideally. And once we've set that up, press the green tick, and that's set, as you see here. Obviously, if you're setting up your meter for any other purposes, this may be different, but this training session is for noise nuisance recordings primarily. So for most of you, 7 days global time is what you'll be looking for. Okay, so once we've pressed the green tick and we're back in global and profile time, you'll also see some profiles. In my instance, I've got profile A, profile B, and profile moving. For noise nuisance recording, you do not need profile moving or profile B, so please make sure they're crossed off. And profile A, what is profile A? This is your resolution of your meter. So this is how fast, how often the meter is actually logging a sound pressure level, a dB level. So in this instance, I set it to 1 second. So every second, this meter is logging a dB value. On the meter here, you see that that is set to 125 milliseconds. So every 125 milliseconds, this meter on the screen here is logging a dB value. For noise nuisance recording, 1 second is perfectly fine. That's what we would advise. Any faster than that can take up quite a bit of memory on the SD card. And unless you're looking to capture quite sharp, impulsive noise, like gunshots perhaps, you wouldn't really need better than 1 second resolution on your meter. So we advise 1 second. If you scroll that up or down until you get to 1 second, then once you're on 1 second, press the green tick and make sure you've got 7 days and 1 second, and then you press the green tick to save. It's worth mentioning that if you keep 125 milliseconds in this bar, it will be every 1 second and 125 milliseconds. So you want to make sure that's zeroed in that column and a 1 in the seconds. As I've mentioned before, I've already got ahead of myself. The profile A is the resolution. That's how quick the meter is logging. If you ever get confused by your meter showing you quite unusual measurements, if say you've mistakenly set it to log every 1 minute, you may find that you're getting quite unusual results. Your meter is performing unusual in an unusual way. Always feel free to reach out to us and we can set you on the right path. We've got a number of guides that can help you, so don't feel that this one session is the only time we'll be able to explain it to you. We can always help you if you get stuck in the future. Okay, so as you see here, there's a lovely graph. I believe our lovely Anthony drew this up for us. It shows you what's meant by profile A every second in time. We get a dB level. As you can see, it changes over time, similar to how the sound pressure level over time graph is shown on the actual meter itself. As I say, once you're confident that your global and profile time are set correctly, press the green tick to come out of the menu and tick. And as you can see, the level over time graph here. Okay, so the next very important setting that you want to set is the audio recording. So if you come back out of here, go to setup, and you go to your measurement. And as you see here, audio recording, you get some information shown about the audio recording, and you've also got either a green tick or a red cross next to it. You want to make sure that that has a green tick against it, otherwise you won't be recording any audio on your meter. So as long as that's ticked, you can tick or untick against the button there. You can then tap on the text and it opens the audio recording options menu. Yeah. As you can see here, the sampling rate should be 48 kilohertz. The resolution should be 16-bit, gain of 48 dB, and a pre-trigger ideally of 30 seconds. So for my particular meter, you can see the sampling rate is 48 kilohertz. The resolution is 16-bit. The gain is 48 dB, but my pre-trigger is only set to 5 seconds at the moment. So we need to click into there and scroll down to 30 seconds and then press the green tick to save that. The pre-trigger refers to the pre-trigger on the actual audio recording. So when you press the hand trigger switch, that doesn't just record from the point at which you press the trigger button. You can capture audio from before the button press. So that's what this particular pre-trigger option refers to. In this case, we recommend setting it to 30 seconds. You can adjust that if you want. I believe the maximum possible period is 120 seconds. You might find that's a bit much. You capture a bit too much information that you don't necessarily need. So the two most common are 60 seconds, so a minute of additional data before the button's pressed, or 30 seconds should be plenty. This pre-trigger can be really handy, again, for catching out residents that are being a bit cheeky. For example, we have heard stories through the grapevine of residents telling their partner, come on, whack the wall, get the dog to bark. It does happen rarely, but it does happen. So it's very useful. If you're under the impression that the resident might not be entirely honest, it can help you catch them out. Or also it can be a value add to the resident as well. If they're a genuine resident and they can't get to the button in time, it captures a bit of audio before they get to the button. Especially elderly residents, they might not be able to get to the trigger quickly enough to capture some hammering or dog barking that particular second. It's completely up to you whether you mention the pre-trigger to the resident. It depends on the situation. As I say, if you're thinking that the situation may be that the resident is trying to catch their neighbour out and is being a bit naughty, it may be worth not mentioning it. Or if you think the resident is a bit worried that they're not going to capture the audio, you can of course put their mind at ease and say, no, there is a pre-trigger. Don't worry. Please don't run to trigger the measurement, to trigger the recording, because there is a pre-trigger and it will capture some audio before you press the button as well. So as we say, we recommend the 30 seconds, but you can press set the pre-trigger to any length you need. It's entirely up to you and what your policies are and what your requirements are. But the important settings that I'd recommend keeping the same is the sampling rate, the resolution, and the gain. The sampling rate and resolution, in simple terms, is the quality of the recording. So if you set, say, the sampling rate lower, it will take up the recording will take up less space on the SD card, but you will have lower quality audio on the recording. So it's well worth keeping it up, the sampling rate up high, the resolution at 16-bit. So you've got plenty of quality audio there. If you're trying to decipher what the noise is, and you need the high quality audio there. And as you can see, Ant shared a lovely little clip from a very popular game show there. It is quite uncanny, the similarity to the menu structure on the meter. So as I say, I'm getting ahead of myself here, but as you can see here, the pre-trigger works with the hand switch to capture the sound before the point you press it. So it can be handy for you. It can be handy for the resident, just depending on what setting you choose. And of course, as always, pressing the green tick to accept and move forward. If you press the red tick, you won't save the settings that you've just changed. Okay, so in this particular instance, I'm going to press the green tick to come out of here and back into my measurement. And down the bottom, you'll see another menu called storage mode. This is another important setting that can cause some confusion if it's not set correctly. So if we go into here, there's a few different menu options. There's manual, auto, synchronized, and repeat. And in certain circumstances, you'll use one menu option more than the other. So auto allows the meter to run for 7 days, or whatever the duration is that you've set it to. As I say, 7 days is what we recommend. And once the meter has run for 7 days, the measurement will stop and will save automatically, as the name suggests. As a minimum, we would recommend setting your storage mode to auto rather than manual. If you have got your meter set to manual storage mode, that means that once the measurement has ended, you have to manually choose to save the measurement. If you don't, the measurement will not be saved, and you run the risk of losing a 7-day measurement. So at the very minimum, we'd recommend you run your meter on auto, which saves it automatically for you and takes that worry away from you. You'll see down the bottom as well, we have repeat. This allows the meter to run for the duration set, so in this case 7 days, repeatedly, as the name suggests. So after you reach your 7-day period where the measurement is going to end, the measurement does stop, it does save, but instantaneously it starts a new measurement, which again will run for the duration set, so in this case 7 days, or until you stop that measurement manually. So when you reach site, if you have left the meter on site for say 10 days, you'll find that you've got one full 7-day measurement on the meter, and the meter will have been running for 3 days. If you left it, it would keep running indefinitely. But if you press stop, you'll have one measurement of 7 days and one measurement of 3 days that you can join together. And it's very well worth pointing out as well, all good things come to an end. If you left the meter out indefinitely on repeat, this would run either until you stop it or until the memory card is full. So as I say, if you keep it on repeat and you're leaving it on site for a very long time, you do want to make sure that memory card has been wiped and has plenty of storage space, especially if you think the resident is going to be taking a lot of recordings. We don't want you to get into the situation where you have plenty of recordings and the memory card's full and the meter then can't save any new measurements and you lose data. So again, worth pointing out, well worth making sure the memory card is wiped before you get to site. Once you've set to either auto or repeat, I'll change it to repeat just for the sake of this exercise. You want to make sure you press the green tick again to make sure that's saved, and you'll see here storage mode repeat. Okay, so if you press the green tick again, we'll be back in the setup menu. And the next thing we want to set up is the trigger.
Ben?
Oh yes, hello Fran.
Hello, sorry to interrupt. I was wondering if we should have a quick 5-minute break before we go through the trigger.
Yes, I think that's very well worth it. I think everyone's probably gasping for a cuppa. So let's see, what time is it? It's currently 11 past 10 on my PC. So if we come back at say, how about we say 20 past 10, gives everyone a chance to have a quick pit stop, make themselves a cuppa, get refreshed, and then we'll run through the trigger. So as I say, I'll meet you all back here at 20 past 10. Hello everyone, we're back to the training now. I hope everyone had a nice break, got a nice warm cuppa in front of them, and we're all ready to get back into the menu options. So just before the break I mentioned that we'd be looking at quite an important menu option, which is the hand switch or the trigger, as it's described in the menu. I quite often receive a lot of questions from customers to the support inbox saying that their hand switch isn't working. How do I get this working again? Thankfully, it's very, very rare for the hand switch to actually break. So if it's not working, the likelihood is that your settings aren't correct. So simply changing the settings as per one of our user guides should resolve the issue. So let's go into a bit of detail about the trigger now. So you need to be in the setup menu again. If you can't remember how to do that, if you're on this graph screen here, press the setup screen, setup button, sorry, and you come into the setup menu screen, and right up the top you'll see trigger. So on here you'll see a few different options. And under events you'll see 0 recording, and in my case it's external and a green tick. You do want this to be ticked. If it's across, please press that to make sure that it is a tick, otherwise you won't be making any recordings with your hand switch today. As you can see here on the meter on the presentation, this has got a red cross, so this particular meter wouldn't be making any recordings. So if you go into external, to do this you actually click on the text here. So remember, if you click on the button, that will change the button. If you want to change the actual menu option, you click on the text or press the text with your finger on the touch screen to come out into this event trigger menu here. So if you go to external, you want to make sure that is ticked. Ignore this. This just tells you which of the pins in your hand switch is being used for this. It's irrelevant, but you just want to make sure that external trigger is ticked. As you can see on the meter here, this event trigger is has been set to threshold. You want to make sure that is unticked. What that does is it only records if your sound pressure level goes above a certain decibel level. So that's not suitable for noise nuisance recording. We want the resident to be able to control when the audio is being recorded. So we want to make sure that external is ticked and threshold is crossed. As you see here, threshold needs to be off. Okay, so the next important menu options you'll see are the event settings. So how long, how much time should the recording run for? So that is the max action time. Max action time is literally how long will the recording be? How long after you've pressed the button to trigger the recording will the recording run for? Usually we recommend 3 minutes. Again, this is one of those settings that it depends on what you're looking to achieve, what your personal preference is. I know some local councils like to run their measurements for 5 minutes. Some prefer 1 minute. 3 minutes tends to be a good happy medium. You're able to capture a bit of context for the noise, but you don't capture so much context that you're having to listen to 20 10-minute recordings for one job. So 3 minutes is what we would advise. If you want to change it, you click in and you get these lovely wheels of fortune here. 3 minutes 0 seconds is what we recommend. Okay, so the recording, another very, very important box to tick is down the bottom, the event action. again, if you don't tick recording, then quite simply it won't record the audio. So you want to make sure that box is ticked. If it is, you can press the green tick to come back out. Okay, so quite often when I receive calls from customers saying that their hand switch is not working, it's not working, I've come to site, the light's not coming on, what can I do? Quite often, this is the menu where the settings haven't been set correctly. And quite often it'd be something as simple as this box right here is crossed out when it needs to be ticked. But as I say, it's always worth making sure that your meter is set up correctly before you go to site. We've got a lot of user guides and helpful documents that we can send to you if it would help you. So please don't feel like you can't come to us for help. You can always call us. You can always send me an email and request the guides. You should all have received user guides for this meter anyway as part of this training. So it's well worth keeping that handy just in case you ever get caught out, because it is almost always as simple as a simple setting or a simple box not being ticked. Okay, so up the top as well, the global measurement. I want to make sure that's manual. So manual trigger. You can also set a delay if you want, but it's probably not advisable. So we'd set that to 0 seconds. But so long as the manual trigger has a green tick next to it. As you can see, there's plenty of other options of triggers available, but this manual trigger is the one that you need. We can press the green tick down the bottom to confirm. And this is what the menu should look like if the settings are set correctly, as we've described. So if we press the green tick again, come back into the setup menu, and we're back to these lovely menu options that should now be a little bit more familiar to you all. One option that we haven't gone through just yet is the instrument menu, which is right down the bottom, just above applications. If we go into there, you'll see that you can change the language if required. By default, your meter should be set to English, but if preferred, you can change the language here. And another very important menu option is the date and time. Before you go to site, it's well worth making sure that your date and time is set correctly to help you differentiate between different recordings. After all, if the resident's complaint is that the dog is barking at 2 o'clock in the morning, you want to make sure that the recording says 2 o'clock in the morning, not 2 in the afternoon. So if you go into date and time, you can change that here if you need to. Up here as well, you'll see an instrument name box. As you can see on the presentation, this is Anthony's meter, so he's called his NOR145. So he knows that's his meter. That's the serial number as well of his meter. You can change the instrument name to whatever you'd like to help differentiate between different meters. The choice is yours, but if you need to change it, the option is there. And if you tick into it, it opens up a keyboard for you to enter in a new name. This does have an effect on the measurements, the measurement data, because you will see that in your My Measurements, your main folder will now be this meter instrument name in the file name. So again, it can be helpful to help differentiate between two different meters if you have got multiple NOR145s or NOR150s available to you, or it can just help you remember that is the NOR150 that measurement has come from if you've got an old NOR140, for example. Okay, so again with the trigger, another important menu option is the digital and analog I/O. So as long as we're still in this instrument menu, you'll see digital and analog I/O up the top, and that just means the input output. So that's the buttons for the meter and the hand switch. So if we go into this menu, on here you'll see the outputs are showing as low, which isn't what you need. On my meter you'll see recordings. So to change this, if you go into the output, you want to make sure active low is crossed out and recording S1 is ticked. So again, you tick and cross. And to make sure recording S1 is ticked, you actually click on the option itself. There isn't a cross for this particular menu item. And once it looks like this, you can tick. It should show digital output 1 recording S1. Okay, and do you want to make sure that's the case for all of these? So you repeat for digital output 1, digital output 2, digital output 3, and digital output 4. Okay, and another question that we get sometimes is headphone playback. How do you turn up the headphone volume? And you'll see on the menu here, headset playback and headset volume, in my case, max. If you ever need to change it, from playback here, and headset volume is here. Once this is all set, you can then press the green tick to save those I/O menu options and come out of there. And if you click again, you'll come back to the setup screen. And if you click again, you're now on your level over time graph again. And now we've got the exam. So if you press, if you have your meter all set up, you can press start and you'll see a little green icon up the top to show that your meter is in an active measurement, and you'll see a green play icon at the top there. You'll also see that the bottom down the button down the bottom changes from start to stop. This is always a good way of knowing if you have mistakenly started a measurement. You see a stop, you see the green play icon, and the light turns to green. You can also see that the color on the graph has changed, and it started actually logging the level over time in a bit more detail here. It's not moving as quickly. And you see the graph at the top actually is recording a black line as well. That shows your inner measurement. If you've got your hand trigger actually plugged into your meter right now, you will be able to press the hand trigger button now. I'm going to go into my note and press recording to simulate this myself. And what you'll see here is that the recording icon has gone orange and note has gone orange. You'll also see on the level over time graph, you've now got an orange marker to show that recording is in progress. You'll notice that it backdated slightly, 30 seconds, and that's our pre-trigger. So the pre-trigger has recaptured the last 30 seconds before I press that button, and the recording is going to be ongoing for another 3 minutes. So in your particular instance, if you've got your hand switch attached, if you press the button, you should see a similar looking screen. You'll see the pre-trigger backdates the recording, and you'll see that this orange bar follows along with the sound level over time. You'll see note has turned orange. And in my case, I'm going to press note again and press recording again to stop the recording. And you'll see that the orange bar has now stopped, and the sound pressure level over time has continued. So that's your marker to show there's a recording in the meter. If at any time you need to stop a recording, that is a useful trick to know. You can go into Note and tap Recording to start or stop. But obviously, once the meter's in the case for your noise nuisance recording, you won't have access to that, so the hand trigger is the way to go. Another common question I receive from a number of customers is, how do I stop the recording from the hand switch? Unfortunately, that's not possible. So which is why we recommend you set the recording to say 3 minutes rather than 5 or 10, because if you accidentally press the recording button and there actually wasn't a noise, you've then run a 10-minute recording, which is going to be quite tedious to listen through. So yeah, we recommend 3 minutes, but obviously once the meter's out of the case, you can stop it with that Note and recording button there. Okay, and for those of you that don't know, you can press either the stop button to stop this measurement now, and you'll see here that's gone yellow. You'll see that the LED at the top of your meter will have turned to blue to show that the measurement has stopped, and you'll also see, hopefully, a yellow cylinder icon at the top of the screen, which shows that the measurement has actually saved. If you're not seeing that icon, that means the measurement hasn't saved, so you may not have set your storage mode to automatic or repeat, as we said earlier. So I believe you see a blue square in that instance if you've set to manual. So if you're seeing a blue square, that's not what you need. You may need to go back through the menu again. But yes, it's worth noting that when you are in a measurement, so if I press start for a new measurement, you'll see that started a whole new measurement now. If you go into the setup menu and go into, let's say, input, you'll notice that your menu options are grayed out. That's because you're in an active measurement, so you can't change your settings. So if you ever see this, you see grayed out options, and you see down the bottom as well, the applications icon is grayed out. Certain other items are grayed out. That's just because you're in a measurement. That measurement is actively running, and all you need to do is either press the stop button down the bottom, or just stop on the screen, and then and then I forgot another step. You then have to press the red cross down the bottom to clear the measurement. There we go, and there you'll see applications is available to you again. I'm going to input. This is all blued out again, and you can change your settings. So it catches a lot of people out, so it's worth paying attention to and bearing in mind. Okay, so it's worth making sure you set up your kit, as I say, if you haven't already done so, so you have it all available to you. Let's see, where are we? Okay, so we've had a break already, so we won't have another break just yet. So we've covered battery, we've covered the noise level, we've covered time, we've covered the start button as well just now. But as I say, it's worth pointing out that you have got the two options available to you. You can press the physical button or the digital button on the screen if you need to. And as I say, the green light comes on when you're in a measurement. As you can see in my meter here, it's blue, so that means there's no measurement running. And as you can see, the actual level over time graph, it runs quite a bit quicker, and it scrolls a lot quicker. So it's quite an easy way to show if you are not in a measurement. You see start, you see a blue icon, and you see instead of a green play button, the play icon at the top here is empty, it's blacked out. And you'll be able to change your settings in the menu as well. So as I say, if you need to plug in the hand switch, that is down the bottom of your meter. You should see this RS232 connector at the bottom of the meter. And as I say, if you press the button, the light should illuminate blue on the button, and you should see the measurement icon blink as well if you're running a recording. And as I say, in another very important feature is that notes option. It turns orange when you're actively running recording. So if you've pressed the hand trigger switch button and it doesn't turn orange, again, you may have missed a step and you may need to go back and make sure your settings are all correct for the trigger to work. Another point that I didn't mention earlier is that in the recording options in here, you can actually see the number of recordings made. So if the neighbour has been particularly noisy that particular week, you may see 20 recordings in here, and you know you've got a lot of audio to go back through when you get back to the office. Or if they've been particularly quiet, you may see 3 or 4 recordings in there. But again, it's a good way to know that the meter's been recording audio. And just in case the resident asks, you have that data available to you on site. As you can see here, this neighbour's been quite noisy, so the resident's taken 14 recordings that week of the audio for you. So that's 14 recordings to go back through. Yippee. And as I say, if you need to stop, you've got the start or stop button down the bottom here, or you've got the stop key on the screen as well. You can also press pause during a measurement if you need to. If you want to pause the measurement and you don't want to stop it, because as I say, if you stop the measurement, it really does stop. It saves it, and if you press start again, you start from scratch with a new measurement. So if you ever need to pause it, as you can see here, this will be blued when it's available to you. You press that, but just make sure you press start again or unpause to make sure the measurement goes ahead when you've left site. Okay, so it looks like we've gone through all of the major items on the measurement screen here. Another question we get is, how do I rename a measurement? So you'll see on your meter there'll be a mem key. This is on a NOR150, so NOR145 users, you may find that button's in a slightly different place, but it should still say mem. So if you find that and press that now, you'll find all of the recordings in your SD card. And if you press and hold your finger on the measurement you want to change, this opens a context menu and you can press rename. It gives you a warning. Do you want to rename? And of course, if you've gone into this accidentally and pressed it, you can press no and come back out of it. But if you do want to rename, you press yes, and it opens a keypad where you can enter in the new measurement name as before. And as always, if you want that to save, you have to press the green tick. If you've come into this by mistake and you don't want to change this, the red cross. As I've mentioned before, if you're in an active measurement and you and it's saved and you want to start a new measurement, you can press the red cross down the bottom to get back to the original level over time graph with the instantaneous SPL and the fast moving graph here. And yeah, so if you clear your existing measurement, you'll see that the yellow graph at the top disappears as well. So that's another good way of knowing that you've saved a measurement and it's still on your meter screen. If it's all yellow, that's what you need to do. Red cross down the bottom to clear it. Okay, so a very, very, very important setting that you need to, or menu item that you need to know to do is how to save these settings. So if you were to turn your meter off right now, all of those settings that you've changed right now would not be saved. They would disappear and you would have to reset up the meter again. So the way we get about this is by creating a setup file. So if your settings are correct and you've made sure that your hand switch is working and you're able to start and stop the measurements, and you have the pre-trigger all set up, if you press the setup key and you go into memory, you'll see in the middle manage setup files. So again, like I say, this is a very, very important option to go for. If we miss this, you're going to have a lot of work ahead of you to go through all of the settings again. But so long as you go into manage setup files, up the top you'll see save measurement setup as, or something along those lines. I believe on some of the older meters, on running older firmware, this can be named differently. But in essence, save measurement setup as, and you'll see the screen here. So this is your actual, well, it's called two different things. You can either call it your setup file, or just to make it a bit easier for people, we sometimes call it your app, your NNR app. Think of it like your phone. You just open an app on your phone and you're good to go. You don't have to code the app yourself. It's there, nice and easy. So in the menu here, you'll see that this app has been called NNR Training. So you can call it that if you wish. You want to make sure that this is a memorable name. You know that this is the correct setup that you want to use. It can be worth, therefore, putting in some of the information about the setup. So in this particular instance, if I tick into here, and let's call this NNR, so you know it's for noise nuisance recording. In this particular instance, we've set the pre-record to 30 seconds with a 3-minute recording. So in this particular instance, we'll say NNR 3min 30 seconds. That's what we recommend. As I say, the choice is yours as to how you name this. It's whatever's going to be memorable for you, but we want to name it so that we know this is the correct setup to be using. Even if it's not yourself on site, you may need it to be nice and simple for your colleagues as well, who may not be on this training, so that they know that that is the setup we have to use for noise nuisance recording. Or if you have multiple setups, so say you wanted a 60-second pre-trigger, for example, or you want a 5-minute recording, that's absolutely fine. You can create multiple setups and save them in just the same way. But again, it's worth naming them separately. So NNR 5min 60 sec, for example, or NNR 3min 30 sec, depending on what the settings are that differentiate them. Before we save this with the green tick, it's very important to press the show setup shortcut. What this does when you go into your application screen, it shows you the application on the home page, so you can just quickly tap into it. If you don't show the setup shortcut, if that's crossed out, you will have to go into the environmental page first before you can load your setup, which is fine. It's not a problem, but it's just another step, and it can be confusing for some users if they've not used a meter for some time. So just for the sake of this training, I'm going to save this new setup, and you'll see setup saved successfully. Okay, perfect. If I green tick out of there, green tick out of there, and go to applications, you should see down the bottom here, I've got a few applications I've already created for this meter, but you'll see here on the home page, NNR 3min 30 sec. So that's the setup that we've just saved. Otherwise, if you haven't pressed the show setup shortcut, you can go into environmental. You'll notice that the icon is the same for all of these. They're all environmental setups. And you'll see standard setups come with the meter. Or down here, you have user setups. And you'll see my NNR 3min 30-second in there. And you can tick in there. And if you forget to show the setup shortcut, don't worry, it's not the end of the world. You can select it in here as well. It's worth noting that if you try to save the setup and it won't let you, it could be that the name has already been taken. So if that is the case, try a different file name until you see the setup saved successfully. And you can press OK and accept to move forward. So as I showed you a bit earlier on in the training, when you boot up, sometimes you'll be in this level over time graph straight away. Sometimes it goes into application menu straight away. Either which way, it's not a problem. If you're in this menu and you want to see your applications, you simply press the setup key. Press the applications menu option down the bottom, and then you're back in the application screen. And you can press your application that we've just created, in my case 3min 30sec. Press the green tick, and then you know you're in that setup then. Okay, so before you start any measurement with your meter, it's worth mentioning that calibration is required. So what do we mean by calibration? So the meter has to can adjust its sensitivity based on a reference tone. So you should, as part of your kit, have a sound calibrator. In some cases, if it's one of the older calibrators, it will be a cylindrical shape. If not, it will be slightly boxy with a large hole in the end. Whichever version you have, or you may even have a third-party calibrator, depending on your department. But whatever one you have, you need to press your cal button first on your meter to go into the calibrate screen. And here you see one of the boxier calibrators. You need to take your windscreen, the foam ball off the top of your microphone, and where you have the opening for the calibrator, you slot that on the end, and if you press the activate button, you should hear a slight tone for your coming from the calibrator. If you pull the calibrator off of the meter, it should, if you have a Norsonic calibrator, it should make a sound for a few seconds and then it should go off automatically. So don't worry, you don't have to turn the calibrator off manually. It should do it automatically once it's off the meter. But for now, if you put the calibrator on the meter and make sure you're in the calibrate menu. So depending on your meter, this is where you will start to see one of the few obvious differences between the NOR145 and the NOR150. So on my particular meter, which is a NOR150, you'll see that it asks you which channel you want to choose. Sound channel 1 always, and then you have to go into calibration just below there, and then you're in the calibrate screen. For NOR145 users, you should come straight into this screen, so don't worry, there's nothing wrong if you skip those steps just now and you see this menu straight away. And likewise for NOR150 users, it's perfectly normal. You just have to go choose the sensor, go to calibrate, and then you're in the same menu anyway. Okay, so when you have the calibrator on your meter and it's definitely making a tone, you can then use one of the great features of these meters. You can auto calibrate. So if we press auto, as you can see on my meter, it's looking very low decibel level because I haven't got my calibrator on my meter at this time. So let's pop this on. and turn this on. And there you go. You see the sound level has risen up to 114 or thereabouts dB. And that's perfect because that's what we are looking to calibrate at, is 114 dB and 1 kilohertz. If you have a third-party calibrator, you may need to calibrate at 90 dB. You should see on your calibrator what level it can calibrate to. But if you need to change this, you can change that here. But for most of you, 114 dB is where you're looking for, calibrating at 1 kilohertz. Okay, and so once you're ready, you press the orange calibrate button and it will automatically adjust the sensitivity against the calibrated level, and therefore it's done. Okay, so once calibrated appears, you can press the green tick to continue and press the green tick again once you're ready to save your changes. But before we go, it's worth pointing out this little chart down here. This is your sensitivity over time, so that's quite a useful chart to see if there's any issues with your meter. So as you see here, you see a negative dB value, which is your sensitivity of your meter. Ideally, this shouldn't change too drastically over time. So as you can see, you want it to look sort of like this, no particularly bad peaks and troughs. If you notice there is a big peak and then a big trough, or any unusual levels are registered here, that can mean that there's damage to your mic or preamp. So it's worth checking with us if you notice that to be the case, because it can be a sign of hardware issues. So on my particular meter, you see here, there's a bit of a spike here. I believe that was where I was testing something and ran calibrate without the calibrator. So ignore that. There's nothing wrong with my meter, but it just shows you, you can see if there is an issue or if something's gone wrong, if you're not calibrated correctly. That's a good hint there. Okay, so once you press the green tick and green tick again, and with the 150 you may have to press it even again and again, you should now be back into your home screen. You can remove the calibrator. Again, like I say, you should hear a tone as you pull it off, and then it will go silent automatically. Okay, so it's worth performing these calibrations before every measurement. So when you get on site, once you've set up all the kit, we would advise you calibrate the meter then to make sure that the levels that have been recorded are accurate. And it's also just as important, it may sound a bit strange, to calibrate after the measurement as well. The reason we do this isn't necessarily so much to make sure that the levels are correct, but it's more to make sure that the meter is still operating correctly and there's been no damage to the meter on site. So say a resident has had a blazing row with their partner, has thrown tea everywhere and it's gone on the meter, gone onto the microphone and caused damage. You wouldn't necessarily know this because they cleaned it all up afterwards. But if you calibrate after the measurement and you see that the sensitivity is way off, you see a big spike or a big trough, that can be a good indicator that something's happened at that particular property. And at least then you know who's responsible for the damage, and you can get a bit of an idea of what's happened before you get back to the office. And again, generally what you'd like to see is that line, that calibration chart stays pretty level over time. Okay, so looks like we're now moving on to the software side of the training. So this is where I will be handing over to my colleagues, Fran and Anthony. But before we do that, I think it's worth us having another 10-minute break, just so we can all refresh, grab a cuppa, have a little pit stop, and then we'll be all good to get back onto some software training. So the time for me right now is it's just turned 11:03. So if we say 11:15, we'll come back to the training. But it won't be myself that you'll be seeing, it will be Francine and Anthony. Thank you very much for listening to me. See you after the break.
Hello everyone, welcome back. It's Anthony from Campbell Associates. So for the next part, we're going to cover the NOR review software and also NOR Connect software for transferring the measurement from the 145 into your computer. So Francine will take you through that in about 5 minutes time. So hopefully you're all back from your break, and we hope you enjoyed the session so far. Ben, thanks for taking us through that. If you are unsure of anything that you've heard today, or you will need a recap, then at the end of the session there will be a feedback form. If you can complete that, you'll be able to get access to your CPD certificates and also a link to the videos that we have. Just pop any comments in there for anything that you're struggling with maybe the memory card or how to download something or setting up the hand switch. We have lots of different PDF guides and videos that we can link you to. And the same for the download of the measurement as well. We've got some videos on YouTube on how to download the measurement. So as I said, Fran will take you through that in just a moment. So I was just going to quickly tell you a little bit about what Campbell Associates are doing that helps support us delivering these training sessions today. So Campbell Associates provide environmental noise, vibration and dust monitoring solutions. So you may have seen these instruments and seen us about what we do already. So we work a lot with construction industry, racetracks, MOD sites to help them monitor noise. That can be with the Norsonic equipment. We actually use NOR145s for remote monitoring. They sit in enclosures on site. They look something like this, and they remotely monitor sound. They have a cloud-based system. These monitors have 4G and Wi-Fi in, and then they send the data to this cloud here. So we help with that. We have worked out special tools for generating reports of this data that can go to people's emails to help them monitor their sites effectively. So on some sites they have like a control room, and it sort of flashes up when they're exceeding a certain noise level. And this all helps towards their maybe considerate contractors or to help with their planning conditions on an industrial site. So we all know about why the reasons that we should monitor. Obviously, the idea is that our customers like to measure this, so they don't need to employ someone to go out onto site all the time and do these measurements. So they can collect that data and then they report it to their client, or they keep that for history, or they can report that to yourself. So we know it's an efficient way of doing it, and nowadays it's much easier with the technologies that we have. Our customers use CAD and noise modeling software, so I know many customers are familiar with this, so it can help them map out where the noise sources are on site and what impacts they're going to have, whether they need some barriers, and if the local residents are going to be impacted by the noise. So they can do this in a 3D model using Google Maps, like the street maps, and then they can have a 2D view of the site, and they can do they can run around traffic movements. We even see this on racetracks as well, and how that's going to impact people in nearby living in their dwellings. So you can populate in the software things like the noise levels, the sound power level of, say, these breakers, of these diggers, and we're able to work out the impact. So moving forward at Campbell's, we are helping customers with sustainable solutions. So running things on solar power, on lithium-ion batteries, and the new one is hydrogen power. So we know there's a big craze with this for a clean energy source, and we see this in vehicles as well. We're trying to go down this route of hydrogen. So we have managed to actually solve this problem. So you can see the canister here, a little bit like the barbecue canister we use in the summer. It contains hydrogen, it charges a battery inside of here, and then it powers these monitors. So we have a dust monitor here, a vibration monitor, and we have a noise monitor. And that will run this one for, this bottle will do a week, and then there are cages where we can put 4 in together, and then it will run it for a month. And as the hydrogen gets low, it sends the site a text to say, can you change it? And we are doing this on construction, we're doing this on industrial sites, we have this at a lot of quarries as well, because they're out in the middle of nowhere, so it's really hard to get power. So here's a dust monitor here. We have a few different dust monitors here at Campbell's. There's 2 that we supply, one by Aeroqual, which is MCerts for PM10. We also have another one from Sonata Systems, which is MCerts for PM10 and 2.5. So yeah, really interesting here, especially as we see the requirement for 2.5s growing in London cities. we actually have a solution to measure 2.5s with MCerts. So here's a monitor on a lamppost. We always try and get them a metre away from any facade, up on a post. Here's an example here of a hydrogen cell solution. So this one's got a cage with some hydrogen cylinders in, and there's a battery on the side. So this is for a road scheme. You will see a lot of these on railway projects as well, because they tend to, in some places, they tend to be right next to houses. So having like getting actually power, ironically, on an electrified railway is quite impossible, I guess. So they use hydrogen, and then it's not creating any noise. Some other things that we have, so we have handheld monitors. We've supplied a lot of these to local schools and universities, so they can measure the impact outside of a school for PM 10 and 2.5 levels, to see you know, if the cars waiting outside is a contributing factor to the amount of dust that there is there. You can change these sensors. There are, I think there's about 10 or 15 different sensors for gases as well, so VOCs and NO2s and CO2s. You can replace the sensor, you just swap it over, and then it gives you an idea of what the levels are locally. All our monitors are all going down this battery route, yeah, a lot of them are mains powered, but we obviously, a lot of sites want to get away from using generators. So this vibration monitor here will run on these D cells, and it can last up to 8 months. And a lot of the monitors that we supply, even with the Norsonic kit that you're using, we're trying to make them more autonomous, and that's sort of that you just press on a button. So like on the 145, you tap on an app and it loads in all the settings. These instruments should do the same. So this vibration monitor, you just press start and then it works automatically. So here's a noise monitor on a solar power, just above the hoarding. Solar panels, a great solution, but this time of year it's a not so great solution because the light conditions are quite short and low. So going down the route of hydrogen or batteries seems to be a more practical solution. So here we can see some monitors on site, and then once the customer wants to collect this data, they can log into their cloud portal. It can be branded as theirs, and they can see their data here. So this is a calendar, a bit like Outlook, and it shows them the average or the maximum noise level. They get a red line if it's breached. And they can see things like the local weather data from one of 44,000 Met Office weather stations. They're able to make notes, you know, if it's from their site or if it isn't. And they can see if their monitors are on or offline, so they get actually text or email alerts, and they can add as many users to the project as they need to get email or text alerts here. Here's a map of the monitors on site. So they're all marked up. It's using a traffic light system to tell them when there's any warnings. And then they can also view the data on their mobile phones. So this is a cloud-based solution here. And they can also capture audio recordings that they can listen to on their phone. So these microphones now, they're much like our NNR kits. When you have a trigger that you go over, they can capture that sound. It can be sent to the manager of the site, and they can listen back to see what the sound is. So we're doing this with one of the Sonata Systems noise and dust monitors. Here's a microphone on the edge of a construction site. You can see there's lots of other noise sources around. So you have like seagulls or motorbikes or police cars, or maybe another construction site. It could be another industrial site. And what we want to do is to work out what the sounds are from around the site. Is it the site that's creating the noise problem? So when you have a trigger level, just like an NNR kit, the sound will be captured when it goes over that. So we have a trigger here of maybe 70 dB. When it goes over that, we capture an audio recording. And the system will send you a link with this audio recording. It then uses AWS, the Amazon Web Service, to analyze the sound, a little bit like Siri and Alexa, which works out whether the sound is a police car, if it's a human noise, an impact sound, if it's any music or vehicles, and the system begins to categorize the sounds. So here we can see there's 442 instances of sound from construction. The rest may be from vehicles, from police cars. And then what we can do is just to categorize the sound, to just listen to those parts of those recordings. So if we only want to listen to construction, they'll all be labeled here, and we can just listen to those. If you just want the vehicles, we can see the percentage of vehicles is 33%, and we can listen to those recordings here, and it could be a motorbike. So it's a really nice, simple system for autonomous monitoring off-site. So we have lots of different solutions based on different applications. Particularly in industry, we like to use the Norsonic equipment because we have some additional features that we're able to work out where the sound is coming from on site. So yeah, if anyone is interested to know more about the solutions, then we have some blogs and some articles that we can link you to, and some online demo portals as well. So Francine's going to take over now, and she's going to show you how to download your 145 measurements or your NOR150 measurement into Norsonic and then into NOR Review. So I'll pass over to you, Fran.
Thanks, Anthony. So just a few seconds. I just need to be able to share my screen now. Okay, so hopefully everyone now should be able to see my screen where I'm showing NOR Review and NOR Connect software. Okay, so now I'll go through the step-by-step on how to transfer data from your sound level meter to your computer. And we'll be using two software. So one of them is the NOR Review software, okay, which is the software that we use to review data and produce reports. And I'll also be using NOR Connect software, which is the software that we use to transfer data from your SD card or your sound level meter to your computer. Okay, so if you haven't got the software installed, no worry, you can still watch the presentation, and then after the presentation you can contact your IT team with the details of the software for them to install. If you haven't got the details, you can email my colleague Ben at support, and he'll be able to share your license details. So if you have used one of the old meters, let's say the NOR140, you were probably using the NOR transfer software. So here with the Norsonic 145 and Norsonic 150, we need to use the NOR Connect. Okay, so NOR Connect is a free software that can be downloaded from Norsonic's website. But this software will have to be installed by our IT team. Okay, and the NOR Review software needs a license. So it might be that you have a USB dongle that you need to connect to your computer to activate the NOR Review license. So if that's the case, you can connect your USB dongle now. It might be that you already have the non-dongle license, the softcode license, so you don't need the USB dongle. If you'd like to upgrade your license that needs a USB dongle to a softcode version, you can contact us as well. So if you email our support line, we'll be able to send you a quotation with the price to upgrade your license, and then we can do this for you. The advantage of the softcode license is that you don't need the USB dongle, of course, but it's also that you can install the software on any computer within your organization, and you can all run the software at the same time, which is very helpful when you are working from home. Okay, so in terms of transferring data to the computer, there are two ways of transferring data. You can either use your SD card, so you can just remove the SD card from your sound level meter and connect to your computer. It might be that you have a micro SD card slot in your computer that you can insert the SD card. If not, then you need a USB adapter to connect the SD card to your computer. The second way of transferring data would be to use the USB cable, okay? So the kit was probably supplied with a USB cable that you can connect from your computer to your sound level meter to transfer data. But I think the easiest and quickest way would be to use the SD card, okay? So I have removed the SD card from my sound level meter and connected to my computer. And I opened NOR Connect software, which is the software that is on the screen. Okay, so in this software, the first thing we have to do, we have to connect our SD card or our sound level meter to the software. Okay, and to do that, you see that on the top, the left side, we have an option there called Connect. Okay, with an arrow. So if this is the first time that you are connecting your sound level meter to your computer, you might have to manually add the IP address of your sound level meter, okay, which should be 10.150.150.1, okay, and then you press connect to establish the connection, okay. Mine is already connected, okay. The second step that we need to do would be to go to the option on the left-hand side, on the top left, where in my case here, it shows General Analyzer. So I'll ask you to double check what is being displayed there. If it's not showing General Analyzer, you can click on the arrow to expand this menu, and then you can select General Analyzer. Okay, so we will be transferring just general data from your SD card or your sound level meter to your computer. So once that is done, as you can see, the software just refreshed the screen here. And in our Connect, we have two sections, okay? As you can see, the software is divided into, let's say, two squares. The one on the left represents my computer, okay? The storage. The one on the right will represent your sound level meter, okay? So on the right side, I have here the data that is in my SD card, and on the left side, I have the data that is in my computer. So if you run any quick measurement today, you should be able to find the data on the right side. If you change the name of the file, you should be able to easily identify the name of the file. If not, then you should at least be able to see the date and time that corresponds to the data that you collected this morning. So this morning, whilst my colleague Ben was presenting, I just took two quick measurements so I could show you here now how to transfer the data. Okay, so to transfer the data from the SD card to your computer, you just need to select this data, click and hold. If I right click, I'm able to delete data, okay? But if I just select and hold and drag it across to the left-hand side, okay? So I just selected and hold, and now I'm dragging to across to the left side, and then I can release. Okay, so this is how I would transfer the data. So as you can see, I just transferred the first file. If I want to transfer the other one, I'll do the same thing. So click and hold and drag it across to the left-hand side, and I release it, and then the data will be downloaded, okay? Once this step is done, this data should be saved in my computer, okay? And there is a very easy way to locate this file. So as you can see, this data is being saved in a folder called My Measurements, okay? This is something that probably your IT team set up when they install the software for you. But if I want to double check this, I can right click on any of my files, okay? If I right click, then I can just select the option Open in Windows Explorer, okay? And when I do that, the software will open the file in your computer where the data is saved, okay? So I know that the data is saved here, okay? Once I double check that the data is saved there, I could possibly delete the data from the SD card using Norsonic software, okay? And to do that, I will just right click on the data and press delete, okay? And then this data will be deleted from the SD card. So when I'm using Norsonic software, I can actually preview the data if I want. So if I double click in any of my data, so the software will just open a graph that will display level versus time. I'll be able to double check on the top of the screen that I know that there is an audio recording there. I know that here on the top of my screen, I also have a marker where I added a note. If you used the battery marker that Ben explained this morning, you will also be able to see these markers here, okay? So Norsonic software won't be used to produce your reports, but you can review and double check that everything is okay with the data. So now if I just close this preview of the data, I can also use the software to share data with my colleagues if I need. So as you can see, on the bars on the top of your software, we are in the option called Home at the moment. If I change this to Share, so if I click on Share, I'll be able to see that I can either email this data to my colleagues, or I can zip this data. So I can compress this data so I can share. So if I want to do that, I just need to select the data in the software. With the data selected, I will have to tick this box that says include notes and recordings. Okay. Once that is done, I can just click on zip. When I click on zip, the software, it will compact all of the files within that measurement, okay? And these will be saved in the folder. So the software will open the folder here for you. And I can see that I have this zip file that I can just email to my colleagues if I want to share that. So let me just have a look if we have any questions so far. Okay, I can see that someone is saying that they just use, they just log the data onto NOR Review directly from the SD card. That is absolutely fine. I will show that as well in a minute. And I can see that someone is also asking if it's possible to change where the software is saving the data on the computer. So it's easily to share or to add to a shared folder. So yeah, this is possible. But I believe this is something that your IT team will have to change for you, and we can send you some notes on how to do that. So if you email us, we can send you some notes showing you how to change this folder. Okay, so I hope that answers your question for now. Okay, so basically so far I showed you how to transfer data from your SD card or from your sound level meter onto your computer using Norsonic software. I showed you how to preview the data using Norsonic, and I also showed you how to zip the files so you can easily share with your colleagues. Now the next step would be to open the data in NOR-Review using Norsonic software. So this is very easy. So now if I go back to the home, okay, so here on my bar on the top of my software, I'm just back to home, and then I will select data in my software. So, okay, so I'm just selecting one file, and then on the top of the software, you'll be able to see that there is an icon for NOR-Review software. Okay, so if I click on that, the NOR-Review software will open the data here for me. Okay, so once NOR-Review is open, I can review the data and I can produce my reports. But before we go there, I just would like to quickly show you how you can display your workspace area, which is your is this space here on the left that will show you all of the details of your project that you are working on, and how to display the marker management area here on the bottom of your screen. And to do that, what I will do, on the gray bar on the top of my software, I will right click, okay? And then when I right click, I need to make sure that workspace is enabled and the marker management as well. So if you right click on this gray space on the top of your software, and then you just make sure that workspace is enabled and marker management as well. There are three options that need to be enabled here are standard, view, and marker. Okay, so I'll just give you a few seconds for you to make sure that these options are enabled. Okay, so once that is done, I can just click anywhere in this gray space to minimize that option. And then we will also go through view just to make sure you have your legend on the right side of your software. Okay, so to do that, I will go to view. If you go to the option view, you need to click on legend. So if your legend is already there, you don't need to do anything. But if it's not, you just need to click on legend here. So if I click, I will remove it. And if I click it again, it will appear on the right side for me. Okay. So this is how your software should look like. So we have here on the left hand side, we have our what we call our workspace. Okay. This will show you a summary of your project. Okay, as you can see, mine at the moment is named as project 1. And when I save this data, we will change it to either the address or the reference number of this case. Okay, on the bottom of our screen of our software, we should be able to see the marker management area. We also have the graph here. So the graph is just displaying the level versus time. We also have a few markers on the top of the screen. As you can see, Here, every time I have this green marker, I know that the green marker represents an audio recording, okay? I also have a black marker. The black marker here in my case represents the battery. So every time my meter was running on batteries, it just loaded this battery marker here, okay? And we also need to have the legend on the right-hand side. Now, we just need to set up the software to use the internal media player to play back the audio recordings. And to do that, we'll go to Tools, Options, okay? Tools, Options, and then I'll select the option under Media Player. I will select the option Internal NOR Review Player, okay? Once that is done, I'll just press OK. And then we can just save all of the settings that we changed. So every time we open or review software, these options are already set up for us to use. So to do that, I'll go back to View. Okay. I will go to Default Properties and I'll click on Set. Okay. So now every time I open the software, these options will be displayed for me. So now in terms of reviewing the data, so the first thing that we usually need to do is just to play back a few of the audio recordings. And there are two ways of doing that. The first way is just selecting the green markers on the top of my graph. And then you see that you have a play icon on the top of your software. And then when you click play, you'll be able to play back this audio recording. And I can just highlight any of the audio recordings that I have. The second and easiest way, in my opinion, is to use the marker management area, okay? So under the marker management area, it might be that the options are all minimized for you. So you just need to click on the plus on the left side, and then it will open all of the markers that you have. One of the markers will be called audio recording, okay? And if you just expand that menu, if it's not expanded already, you have a list of all of your audio recordings. So the audio recordings will be listed according to the date and time. And you can also have a look at the marker interval, which will show you the time, the date and time when this audio recording was taken. And hopefully you'll be able to match this information with the diary sheet that the resident will complete throughout the week that the kit will be deployed at their property. I can also check the duration of this marker. So if I double click in any of these audio recordings, as you can see, it will highlight on the graph the area. And if I press space on my keyboard or the play icon, I'll be able to play back this audio recording. Once I played back this audio recording, I'm able to add a few notes to this. And to add the notes, I will just need to press F2 on my keyboard. So if I press F2, I will be able to add notes. So let's say that I identified there was a dog barking. So I can just type there, dog barking. Okay. And then I can do this with all of the audio recordings that I wish to play back, and that's a few notes. The other way of marking these audio recordings without adding notes would be to add a few markers, okay? So if I highlight a part of my audio recording, so let's say that I identified that this is the part that corresponds to a dog barking, I can just select this part on the graph, and then it will open this menu here where I can go to Insert Marker. So when I insert marker, it might be that you already have a few markers there. If not, you can just type. So let's say here, dog barking, okay? And then I just need to press on this option on the right side to add this marker. And I can select the color that I want to use with this marker. So let's say that here I want to use the color, let's use orange, okay? And then if I press OK, the software will add a marker. This piece of the audio recordings, as you can see on the right-hand side, it already added this option to my legend. And if I go to my marker management area, I'll be able to see that now I have an option there that says dog barking. Okay, so I can insert different markers for different events that happen throughout the 7 days of measurement. So let's say that I'm listening to the second audio recording. I identified here that is the dog barking once again. So I just need to select a part of the graph. Once I selected and released, I can go to insert marker to add a different marker, or I can go to recent markers to add dog barking again. Okay, and in this way I can identify all of the events. Okay, so when I finish reviewing all of this data, I can generate automatically a Word document. So if I right click on the screen, I can click on generate Word document. And when I do that, the software will create a new Word document and will add this graph for us. Okay, it may take a few seconds. My computer is quite slow at the moment. Okay, so we'll just generate this Word document. So in this Word document, any of the information that I want to add, I can just copy and paste from the software. Okay, so I think there is a problem here with my computer. So, but basically, once you press right click on the screen and click on generate Word document, the software will open a Word document where you can copy information from the software and paste onto this Word document. Okay. You can also copy and paste this table here of the marker management. Okay, it's easier if you copy and paste onto an Excel file, but if you just want a quick overview of the number of the audio recordings and to copy your notes, you can literally just right click on the first line of this marker management area, copy and paste onto your Word document. Okay, so here it's very easy and straightforward. Once you finished reviewing all of the data, you can save this project. Okay, and to save this project, on the top left side of the software under File, you can select the option Save Project As. Okay, so once that is done, you can choose where this data will be saved. So here for this example, I'll just save it in my desktop, but you can choose the location in your computer that you want to save this. Once that is done, I can change the file name. So let's say that this one, I'm just calling the address, let's say 15 Queens Road. Okay. And then the most important part of saving the data is just to make sure that this box is ticked. Okay, so just tick this box. And what does it do? It will save under this folder that I'm calling 15 Queens Road in this case. We'll save all of the raw data and all of the audio recordings. So if I need in the future to review the data, I will be able to open this project, play back all of the audio recordings because all of the raw data is saved there as well. So if I don't tick this box, I won't be able to play back the audio recordings using this NOR review project. Okay, so it's very important that we tick this box and then we can just press save to save this data. So if I go to my desktop, I have here this folder with all of the data saved. So if I want to review this project in NOR review, I can double click here because my computer is set to recognize NOR review data and open it automatically in NOR review. If yours is not, we have a few notes showing you how to do that, or better saying, your IT team can set up this up for you. So if you need this, just email us and we'll share this with you. So I'm able to play back, to open this data in our review. I'm able to check my reports if I created any. And if I go to measurements and I will open the files until I find one that is called recording, I'll have my list with all of the audio recordings. So I could possibly just play back them using Windows Media Player if I don't want to use the software. Okay. So once this data is saved, you can either share with your colleagues or just leave it there for now. But if you want to share with your colleagues, you'd need to share the whole folder. So you'd need to share this folder. That is the original folder that the software created there for you. Okay. So basically, this is how to download data and review in NOR review. Now, there is an easiest way of transferring data onto NOR review. And to do that, I'm just going to close this measurement here. Okay, so if I have my SD card open in my computer, so I'm just going to find my SD card folder here. Okay, and I will also open NOR Review software. Okay, so once I open NOR Review software, it will come up with this option if I want to open a new project. So here I'll just close this option. And then if I have my SD card open here with the NOR Review software in the background, I just need to go to the folder NOR measurement, open this folder. My sound level meter is just called CA demo. I'll just open this folder. And here I can locate the file that was originally saved in my SD card. So if I open any of these, I will see that I'll have a file there called measurement. If I click and hold on this measurement and drag it across to the left side to my workspace and drop it there, then the software will open the data for us. Okay, so this is a second way of you transferring data to your computer. The only thing to note when you do that is that this data at the moment is not saved into your computer. Okay, so when we use NOR Connect software, we transfer the data and we save this data into your computer. And then we open this data in our review, work on a project, and then we save the project. So we will have the data saved in two places, the original raw files and your project in NOR review. But when I transfer the data directly from my SD card onto NOR review, the data is not saved in my computer. Then I need to remember to go to File, Save Project As, and then I can save it here. So I'll just write test2, create project name, and then I'll save. Once I do that, then it's saved in my computer. Okay, so this is just for you to remember when you do that. Once the data is saved to your computer and you double check that the data is there, you could possibly delete all of the data from your SD card, and then the SD card is ready to be removed from your computer. It's always important to mention that we always need to eject the SD card, okay? So if you right-click on the SD card, then you can eject, to safely eject the SD card to be able to use it next time you go out to do your measurements, okay? So I'm not sure if anyone has any questions, or Anthony, have I forgot to mention anything?
I don't think so. I think that was everything we needed to cover. There's one in the chat now, just about often the workspace is minimized or floating. How do I set it to the left-hand side of the screen? That's quite straightforward. It's normally just dragging it onto the left normally. But if it is missing, so you got the right click that we can do in the grey panel.
Yes, that's right. So if you right click here on the gray panel, you can just make sure that workspace is selected. And if it is floating on the screen, you just need to click and hold and just drag it across to the left side. And then it will be set on the left side of your screen.
Yeah, I think sometimes you have to you have to get the mouse right over to that left-hand side of the screen, and so it will drop down onto there. But I think I have a video on that, so we can send it over to this customer here.
All right. Okay. Yes. So if you can email us if you don't manage to do that, we'll share the video with you.
There's one more question, Fran, as well. Do you want to answer that one?
The one from Julian.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So can you give a brief outline of what will be covered in this afternoon session? Okay. So in the session this afternoon, it will be covered advanced measurements. So we'll be showing you a few settings regarding low frequency noise and environmental. What else are we going to be covering, Anthony?
Yeah, it will be very similar to the 140 session last week in the afternoon. It will just cover the advanced sessions of the advanced features of the 145. So how to change some of the settings for the logging and the triggers for BS142 or low frequency noise. So it will be more advanced. It won't be very good for beginners who are not familiar with the kit. We'll show you how to put the L90 onto the on the meter as well. And also the session there for Mark, the afternoon session will cover the L90 on NOR review as well and how we plot that. So we cover that in that session too.
All right, okay, we hope this answers your questions. So is there anything else that we need to add, Anthony, or I think that's it for the morning session?
Yeah, the next session starts at 2 o'clock, and we'll get right into the settings on the meter, so some advanced settings there, and as I said, straight onto the software after that. So 2 o'clock.
Okay, yeah. So we mailed you last week with the links for the second session as well. So you can just join the meeting if you have the link. And yeah, we look forward to seeing you this afternoon or hearing from you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.